Greetings. Oh my gosh, it's been so long since I've done this. Almost 4 months. It's hard to believe. Well, I hope I can remember how. Welcome to Freeway Bible Study. My name is Kurt. I'm your host. Checking the bike. I'm riding a new bike too. Got a new GSA. Start of a new. It's a new year too. Last time I did one of these was back in December 22nd. It's currently April. Today's what, the 11th, I think. Hold on, I gotta fix my earpiece. Hold on. Anyway, I'm a non-believer. I don't believe the stories in the Bible are true. Well, I'm sure some of it's true, right? I'm sure there's. I'm sure there's some history in there, some facts, but I don't believe the supernatural bits. The God in heaven and hell, and demons, and the devils, and the parting of the Red Sea by supernatural forces and all that kind of stuff. But I'm very interested in studying it, especially because so many of the people in my life are believers, and they keep telling me I'm missing out. So I'd like to know what the fuss is all about, what all the excitement is all about. What am I missing out on? Well, I mean, I know kind of, because I used to be one of them. I used to be a believer. So put aside that stuff and went on with my life. That was decades and decades ago. So far, it's been all right. Life's challenging, but I think it's better without the supernatural baggage. But let's get on to it. So, the journey from Exodus. I'm trying to fix my little seat down here. It's a brand new bike, or new used bike, so it's taking a while to adjust it to. The journey from Exodus through Exodus 19 took me so long, largely because of a tangential side journey I took to answer the question, did God have a wife? And I had to read a book that came up kind of as a side thing. I don't remember exactly what happened. I think it was in Exodus 18 that I posed that question, or I was introduced to the possibility that God may have had a wife. And the reaction I got on Facebook and elsewhere was, incredulity, kind of, people thought I was, pushing over the edge. I was warned to watch out. And I was kind of, that got my interest up. I thought, maybe I'm going to look into this more. So I bought the book, Did God Have a Life? By Professor William Deaver, archaeologist of ancient biblical biblical history, artifacts, things like that. And I read the whole book. And my conclusion, it's all summarized in a blog post I did called Did God Have a Wife? It's a summary of the whole book. Chapter by chapter, review and summary of the entire book. And it's on my website, goingalone.org. So I'll let you take a look at that if you want to. But my conclusion is that God did indeed, from the book, is that God did indeed have a wife, that she was Asherah, also known as Anat, depending on the various gods that Yahweh was. If Yahweh was not derived from, Yahweh derived attributes from, whether that be the god El, the Canaanite god El, or the Canaanite god Baal, which some tend to change the meaning of those words just to mean Lord, but they actually were the names of gods. El being the chief god in the Canaanite pantheon, Baal being a younger, more subordinate god, and their respective consorts, Asherah and Anat. Sorry. Anyway, I think Mr. Deaver does a very good case of laying out the archaeological evidence for the proposition that before the Reformation, the Deuteronomic Reformation of Judaism that occurred after the return from Babylon, that basically the Israelites were worshiping more of a pantheon, with El, Baal, Yahweh kind of at the head, and Asherah, not as their consort, is a mother goddess of particular interest to the women folk. I see that my little god, you see him on the dashboard there? He's not doing so well. Right there. Might have to pull over. Whoa! Oh goodness. He's not doing good at all. I'll have to pull over. Whoa! Where'd that come from? Oh goodness. Wow, I'm about to lose my god. I tried to install my little god in my dashboard, and clearly that's not working out. Whoa! Don't hang in there, little god! That's my little god, Daikoku. It seems like I've got a lot of deities in my life these days, huh? Oh gosh, I'm gonna be late to work. Oh well. Anyway, let's pull over here real quick and rescue Daikoku from falling off the bike. I'll swing around up here at this Juku Study Center area. Anyway, so I think the case was made. It's not a conclusive case, but there's enough archaeological evidence, I think, to back it up. And again, see my blog post if you want all the gory details. But this particular video is not about the question of God having a wife. It's the question of Exodus 19. So let me go ahead and jump into it and summarize it. And although I spent almost 4 months studying it, I hope I can summarize it well. It's not a very long chapter. And the chapter opens with Moses climbing up to the top of Mount Sinai to have an audience with God. And God tells Moses that he wants Moses to go back down and give a message to the people. And the message basically is that God intends to have a word with Moses, and he wants the people to know about this and, in a sense, to be in attendance. This means that for 3 days they are to prepare, to clean their clothes, get ready, abstain from having sex with the women folk, and then at the end of those 3 days, the trumpets will blast and will announce that the people may approach Mount Sinai. It was a ram's horn in particular that would be sounding that. Let me just fix this real quick. I'm sorry, little god, you're not ready to travel with me just yet. I haven't got this sorted out. I did a bad job. Let me fix this real quick. It's a hundreds of year old god that I've got from Japan. His name is Daikoku, and I've had him with me for decades. There you are. Hey, Daikoku. Sorry about that. Let's put you in a safe spot until we get to where we need to go, which is work. We'll stuff you in here. I don't know if I trust you in there. I don't trust you in there. Let's put you in my backpack. Not that I don't trust you, I just don't trust myself. You're going to rattle around in there and get knocked over and break, because it's just made of terracotta. There we go. Daikoku, put you in my backpack, and I'm sorry about that. That was a failed effort. So after 3 days, the trumpet would blare, and it was a particular type of ram horn. I think it's one of those curly ram horns, you know, like an ibex or something like that. And it would get increasingly louder, and that was the sign that the people were to come. But before we talk about that, let's talk a little bit about the preparations that they did. They cleaned their clothes. The impression that I got from the reading was they cleaned their clothes right away, which wouldn't that mean that they were soiled 3 days later? And how many people are we talking about? Are we still talking about the millions upon millions? Hey, this is fun. Let's do it again. Are we talking about the millions upon millions? The 2 to 3 million people that we were introduced during the Exodus from Egypt? Probably, maybe more. And they're all to clean their clothes, and they're not to have sex with their wives. Now I'm going to interject. I read this when I read the Bible. I read it in 3 passes. I read it once in the King James edition, the chapter, and then I read another time with the NIV, New International Version edition, and then I read a third time from the Hebrew Bible. with Rashi commentary, and it also gets the summary of Jewish scholarship consensus. In a way, I can't think of a better way to say it. It's kind of, I can't remember what the term is. It's a term for it, and it basically means that scholars, some of the most respected scholars in Judaism are all in agreement that what it really means, and it's really blatant commentary. What I mean by blatant is, Mr. Gear. What I mean by blatant is it's really straightforward stuff, amazing stuff, like what I'm about to tell you now. For example, what I learned was the reason that the men weren't, and it depends on how which Bible version you read. In the King James edition, it says, in the NIV it says you shall abstain from sexual relations with your wives. It says nothing about the women who are not your wives, but we won't go there. But in the King James it says, you shall not come at your wives. That's an interesting way. Man, it's like coming onto them. Is that how you say it in the King James era? Come at. But there's a very interesting reason, and if you're sensitive, then I recommend you pause or cover your ears for the next minute, because you might not like. This may offend you. But it's from the Bible. It's from the Hebrew Bible. It's actually the commentary to it says this is the reason. The reason the men weren't supposed to have sex with their wives. Okay, but again, cover your ears if you're sensitive. Is because if they did, before 3 days, then when the women went before God, if when they have intercourse, if the men ejaculated into their wives, then there would be fresh semen dripping out of their vaginas, and that fresh semen would be an offense to God. I don't know why fresh semen is an offense to God. Maybe because it's fertile or something like that, and he didn't want any of that. But after 3 days, if any semen was still inside of them, hadn't been absorbed into the woman's body or leaked out already, then any semen, 3-day-old semen that leaked out of her body would not be an offense to God. It would be impure. Actually, that was the word that was used, impure. No, it would be pure. So my friend Peter, I think he commented, why is it that dead semen dripping out is pure and live semen dripping out is not pure? I don't know. But that's the reason. That's the kind of commentary you get with the Hebrew Bible that you swear to God you won't find it anywhere else. It's amazing stuff. So anyway, okay, you can uncover your ears now. So after 3 days, increasingly loud, the trumpets blaring, the ram's horn. And imagine all the people of the camp of Israel gathering around, okay, let's go, it's time to go, let's go to the mountain. Now, Moses had told them this would all happen, so they cleaned up, they put on their chastity belts for the last 3 days, and they were ready, and they all scrambled to the mountain. Now, Moses wasn't doing nothing during those 3 days. He had actually, probably with some help, put together some sort of sign. I don't know, was it like a no trespassing sign? A board on a pole or a pile of rocks or something, but it basically said, go no further from here. And he had posted that all around the foot of the mountain, because God had told him that if any man or beast sets foot on the mountain, well, God is on the mountain, not any man or beast other than Moses, then that man or beast is to be killed, but in a very particular way. It's a 2, maybe 3-step process of killing. So picture this: Moses put up all the signs around the mountain. Don't come any closer. And then, if any man or beast was observed to do that, poor beast, they didn't know any better. Then the following would happen. First, they would. I guess there's a place where you would stone people. It's like a high point. And the Bible actually says that high point is the height of 2 men's height. So if a man at that time was 5'5", about a 10 or 11 foot high area. So you take that man. Let's say there's some man who stepped over the line when God was on the mountain with the blasting of the horn, and so they grabbed him and they said, "That's it for you. You're done for. God said to kill you." So they would take him up to that. It didn't say it had to be the height that place, the stoning place, but it said of that height, and they would throw him off. So they would take him up like a 10 or 11 foot high, rock cliff or something like that, and push him off. And I guess that wouldn't kill him, not likely, but that would probably hurt. So that's how it would start. Or they'd do the same thing with a lamb or a sheep or a cow or something. Imagine pushing a cow off a 12-foot rock. Poor cow. Anyway, after that, they'd grab him again and they'd either do one of two things. They'd how do they do that? They'd either stone. This is the kind of stuff that comes of reciting it later, because I can see the issue. Because they would either stone him with stones, of course, or they would shoot him up with arrows. But and the Bible said specifically that had to be done by the stone and the arrow, so that they would not touch him. I guess the man was impure. But then how did they push him off the rock if they didn't touch him? It's like, hey, just they come to do that fake lunge at someone, hey, until he backs up and off the rock. But that's what happened. Now the Bible doesn't say if anybody actually suffered that, any man or beast suffered that punishment, but that's the way it was to go down per God's rule. So next, running away. What? I don't. What? That was an interesting sign on that van. Couldn't quite catch it all. One pregnant mama running away, it said. Anyway, so they get all that, and then all the people assemble at the base, and then Moses climbs up to the top, and wouldn't you know it? And we know the name. We don't know exactly where Mount Sinai was, but there's some good candidates. And there's one particular mountain on the Sinai Peninsula in Saudi Arabia. I almost remember the name. That is a chief candidate, and there's a monastery at the base called St. Catherine's. And wouldn't you know it, but one of my friends on Facebook has been there and climbed it. He was deployed as a peacekeeper during, I think it was in the 80s. And he climbed and spent the night on top of Mount Sinai. And he wrote to tell me that as a young 20-something paratrooper, that climbing Mount Sinai once kicked his ass. So we know it's a hard climb. But we also know that it may not have been that hard, because apparently as Moses and the people approached Mount Sinai to have the audience with God, the mountain erupted in fire and smoke, and the fire and the smoke reached all the way to heaven, wherever the heck that is. So I guess that's up there somewhere, high enough for fire to reach. But not only that, and you don't get this in the Bible, but you get it from the Jewish commentary, the entire mountain lifted off of the ground and turned upside down. So wouldn't that mean that the tippy top of the mountain would then be right at the ground, so Moses wouldn't have to do anything more than step over and there's an upside down burning bush talking to God? Maybe, I don't know. But then, I don't know. So anyway, so Moses he clambers up the mountain, or he just walks to the upside down peak, and he starts talking with God. And the first thing that God says is go back down there. He must be, the mountain must have righted itself back up, because God says get back down there. So if he goes down the mountain and it's upside down, then he's going back up there, right? And then the people aren't up there, so it must have gone right side up. Maybe he picked up God when it was picked up Moses when it was upside down, righted itself, and now Moses is magically at the top, or miraculously. That could be it. Anyway, God tells Moses, get on down that mountain, and you tell those people to stay back. Or am I getting ahead of myself? No, I think that is what happens at this point. So Moses gets a little, testy with God and says, but hey, why so? I told the people not to come up, and I even set up signs around the mountain telling them not to come up. And then God says, yeah, but they might come up, and then I'd have to go down there and go amongst them and start killing some of them, and the Hebrew Bible says that God would go in and just kill a few select individuals to kind of make a point or something like that. But that you don't get that unless you read the Hebrew one. Otherwise, God sounds like he's gonna get busy with the Israelites if they get too close, especially the priest. He said he'll do the same thing to the priest. So Moses starts his way down, and God stops him and says, hey, and by the way, when you come back up, bring Aaron with you. He doesn't say anything about the priest, but he did say just prior to that the priests have to know their place too. Now the Jewish scholars interpret that to mean that they need to know their place, that this meant that the priest could also follow Moses and Aaron back up, but that there was kind of a hierarchy in terms of how people were to position themselves. God at the very tippy top of the mountain, Moses standing right before him in awesome audience of God, the glory of God, who, by the way, God is hiding in a cloud, because he doesn't want people to see him, but he does want them to hear their voice. And everybody, even the millions assembled below, would all hear the following words from God. I am the Lord, or the Lord, I can't remember. It's right there at the beginning of the Ten Commandments stuff. I am the Lord, and thou shalt hold no other, something like that. It's a little sentence fragments from the first part of the issuing of the Ten Commandments, and then people would hear that. So, but Moses went back down the mountain. He warned everybody, okay, hey, everybody, see this lines here, these signs, don't go past it, or God's going to get mad, and you're not going to like it. And then he grabs Aaron and says, Aaron, you're coming with me. And then he looks at the priest and he says, you guys can follow me too. And apparently the priest and all the people are standing there with, like animals, and that they're ready to sacrifice and burn as burnt offerings to the Lord. And the priests are to follow as well. So at the final tally, when they're up at the top, God is at the very tip top of the mountain where he always appears. No question about that. Very clear several times. One time it says it right at the start of Exodus 19 that God's at the tippy top. And then later in the Jewish commentary in the Hebrew Bible, it says the same thing as well. And then just off from God is Moses, and just a little back from Moses is Aaron, and then a little back from that is the priest, and then way down at the bottom of the mountain in front of the signs are the people. And that is basically how it ends. Exodus 19. Now, it seems like I spent a long time, 4 months, just to allow that. Yeah, it's true. I most of that time, probably half, not most, but half of that time was spent studying that does God have a wife question, which I learned a lot. But this study of this chapter has forever changed my impression of Exodus and the interaction of God with Moses on Mount Sinai, the involvement of the people. Before this, I had always thought that God and Moses had this private audience on the mountain, not on the tippy top, but maybe in a little flat spot, a little down below where the burning bush was happening. And well, that doesn't say in a burning bush right here. It's going to be in the next chapter, I think. And then that the people really didn't know what was going on, and that the 40 days and 40 nights, they weren't sure. But that's not true. They fully knew that God was there. They saw the fire. They saw the smoke. They heard the voice. They saw the mountain turn upside down. They saw Moses come back down the mountain. Aaron went up with him, and so did the priests. They saw all this too. There could be no question in their mind that something incredible was going on, and they probably would be able to attribute it to God. So their willingness to go the way of the golden calf in the end is kind of astonishing. And with that, I think I'm done. Thank you very much for joining me for Exodus 19 on Freeway Bible Study. I'm sorry that it took so long to get through this chapter. Next up, Exodus 20, which should be a lot of fun. It's the first version of the Ten Commandments. Remember, there are 2 versions, Exodus 20 and then a few chapters later. Okay, take care, everybody. Have a great day. Make it a good life. Bye-bye.